Hi, this is Art McBain of Confluent. I've been asked to do a video version of my training so that I can refresh people's memories after having taken my official laser cutter training course. Today, we're going to walk through setting up CorelDRAW so that we can go from a basic set of shapes to printing out on the laser cutter. First off, we're going to select the rectangle tool over here and create a square. I'm going to set the sides so that they're exactly the same, and then we're going to go over here to the right. On the right here, by default, we have two tabs. The bottom tab is the Object Manager tab. This will show us everything that's currently inside of our file. All of the shapes we've created and will create in the future. Next, we want to go to the Object Properties tab. This tab will show us all the properties about this object, such as the outline, colors, and fills. By default here, we have the Outline tab first. As we would like this to be cut out on the laser cutter, we are going to select the hairline as the first option here. The laser cutter uses hairline as the value that it does a vector trace around an object. Vector traces are when the laser cutter starts at some point on the path and follows the object all the way around the outside until it is complete. This is as opposed to raster engraving, where the laser cutter starts on the left and goes to the right and basically does the entire shape filled in line by line. There is also a shortcut to setting the outline. We can go up here to the toolbar, and there's a drop-down where we can set it here as well. If we wanted this shape to be engraved instead, we can do that. Just set it to 0.5 point or above. Next up, we're going to create a circle. I want this circle to be engraved, so we're going to make it slightly smaller than the box that we created, and then drag the center to the center of our square. Then, in order that it isn't cut out, I'm going to change the outline to be none. Then I'm going to go over here to the right in the Object Properties tab and change the fill so that it has a uniform fill, and now it will be engraved. I can also, as a shortcut, click on one of these boxes over here to the right, and it will fill with that color. Now we're ready to go to get this printed. What I would like to do before that, though, is position this a little better on the page. Objects should be, ideally, in the upper left of the page. This is because the laser cutter head, when positioned as your starting point, will start here in the upper left of the page. So if you have an object that is too far down here to the right, the laser cutter head will be positioned here, and then it will move all the way down here to start your shape, where you might not even have any material. To print, just click the Print button here, or go to File, Print. Inside of the Print dialog, you'll notice that by default we have selected the Epilogue Engraver Win-X64 Copy 1. This just means that it's the engraver to the laser cutter to your right. We're going to select the Preferences button for this laser cutter, and we're presented with this dialog. We want to make sure that the piece size here, which is actually the page size, is the same as the one is in CorelDRAW. If they do not match, then you should make them match. If they don't, then some odd things could occur. It's possible that your piece won't be engraved out on the machine where you asked it to be. By default, we have the autofocus button checked. This means that the laser cutter will take and move the bed up until it touches a pogo stick on the head, and then it will move the bed away until it is the right distance away for a proper engraving. You want to make sure that you have material underneath where the laser head is so that it doesn't ram the pogo stick into the bed. Next up, we have the job type here. If we wanted to run only the engraved shape here in the middle, we could select the raster job type here. This would also handle outlines that have been set to 0.5 point or above. If we set it to vector, it will only do the outline of this square because that is the only object we have set to have an outline of hairline. The combined job, as its name implies, does both. It will do all of the engravings, the raster pieces, first, and then follow it up with all of the vector tracing second. You can't make it do them in reverse order unless you print two separate times and do it yourself. To set the settings we desire, we're going to go over here to the right and change the speed. We'll set it to 100 today, and the power, which we'll also set to 100. This will give us a very lightly colored and not very deep engraving. Next, we're going to go to the vector settings. The vector settings also let us set the speed and power. For wood, we're going to set it to a speed of 15%, and we're going to set it to a power of 100. However, for the vector settings, we have the option to change the frequency. For very dense materials, like acrylic or other things, you may want to set it all the way to 5,000. For wood, however, we're going to set it to be somewhere between 400 and 500. You can't type in this box like you can the other ones, so we're left to use the slider. If you need it to be exact, you can use the plus and minus buttons to adjust it yourself. Things such as paper, as opposed to wood, would use something closer to 200 to 300. The frequency roughly corresponds to how often the laser is on during its job as it goes around, and the more that often that it's on, the more power it puts in to your piece, and it will get hotter and be able to burn more, and so on. So if you select a frequency that is more than you need for your material, you may end up with extra charred or melted edges and other undesirable effects. If you set it to be too low, then it might not be able to cut through your material at all and leave you with dotted lines or almost no line at all. The rest of the options in here, for today at least, we're going to leave alone. They're as we would like them to be. So now that we've set this up, we can click the OK button. We can now select the Apply button, and we will print in anticipation of going to the laser cutter next. Over here by the laser cutter, we have a power button down here in the lower left of the machine. It's this large button on top. So I'm going to turn that on now. The laser cutter, when it starts up, is going to find its home and set that for you. Next, what we need to do is we need to go and turn on the fan. This sucks all of the excess dust and material out of the laser cutter bed as we are working, so that it doesn't get cloudy in there and cause it to be hard to focus the laser as well as catch on fire. We need the orange cord here, which will plug into the power strip on the wall. Next, below the table, we have the air compressor. This causes air to be blown out by the head of the laser and blows dust off of your material. I will turn that on in a second so that it doesn't become harder to hear things as I talk to you. On the laser cutter's display here, we want to turn the pointer on, which is this button to the right. You'll notice that a green light turns on that tells us that it's on, and that we can see a red dot over here indicating where the laser cutter head is currently at. Since it's not an ideal location to cut our square, we're going to have to move it. Over here on the laser cutter display, we want to hit the XY off button. It's going to ask us if we want to go or stop, so I'm going to hit go because I do want to turn on the XY mode to be able to move things around. Next, we're going to lift the lid, and now we should be able to freely move this bar by pulling on it carefully and by pushing carefully on the laser carriage here. By combining those, we can move it to a position that we would like to be able to do our job. And there we go. If you feel any resistance when pulling on the bar or pushing on the carriage, then please stop, go back over here to the display, and determine if you are even in XY off mode or if it's still asking you the question and you forgot to hit go. Now that we are ready to go, we can hit the Set Home button. It says Set Home Center, and now we can hit the Reset button to exit the mode. You can also turn the pointer off at this point if you would like, as we do not need it anymore. I will now close the lid. The laser cutter will not run with the lid open. The carriage may move around, however the laser itself will not turn on. This is a safety feature. Now that we are ready to go, I will turn on the floor air compressor, and I will also hit the go button on the laser cutter's control display. This is it performing the autofocus. And now it will perform the engraving first. As you will notice, there is dust and particulate coming off of the piece. This is going back toward the back of the laser cutter and getting pulled out by the fan we turned on earlier. Any sparkling and shimmering you see is just the laser interacting with the material and not the laser itself. The glass will prevent any stray laser beams that may possibly reflect off of anything inside from reaching our eyes. If at any time during the process of engraving or cutting out a piece you need the laser cutter to stop, you can go back over here to the display and you can hit this red stop button here. If it is engraving, the laser cutter will stop immediately when it reaches the left or right side, and then we can open the lid to adjust things if we need. If it happens to be doing a vector trace at the time, it will stop when it reaches the next point. So if you need the laser head to stop immediately, you can always lift the lid and the laser will turn off, but the head may continue until it reaches the stopping point you asked for. Since we don't really want to stop our job, we can continue it here by pressing the Go button. If you did actually want to stop your job and start over, then you could hit the Reset button at this point and it would go back to the home we selected earlier. This would cancel the job and make you unable to resume it. Since we don't want to do that, we will hit the Go button, and you'll notice that it continues. In a few moments, it will finish with our circle, and then it will begin to do the vector trace outline of our square that we've asked it to do. Now it is going to do a vector trace around our shape, going at 15% speed and 100% power, just as we asked it to do. When it finishes jobs, it will end them with a beep. You'll notice that the laser head did not end exactly where we started. You can verify this by turning on the pointer. If you do want it to return to the home that you selected before, you can hit the Reset button and it will move for you. However, if you were to replace the material under the laser head and start it again without hitting Reset, it would go and laser things out exactly as you asked them to, without having to hit the Reset button. We will now open the lid and take out our materials. And we now have a nice engraved square with a circle in it. Or engraved circle inside of a square, I should say. Thank you for watching, and I hope to produce some future videos on other topics related to using the laser cutter here at Confluent. Happy lasering! Thank you.